The sound of expensive shoes echoed through the marble hallway. Sharp, cold, impatient. "Can you move any slower?" barked a voice that could freeze the air itself. It was Richard King, one of the city's youngest billionaires, known for his temper as much as his fortune. He stood there in his tailored suit, glaring at the janitor hunched over the floor. The janitor's name was Elijah. His uniform was faded, his hands rough, his movements quiet and precise. He didn't look up. He just kept wiping, steady and calm, as if the world's noise didn't reach him. Richard's assistant whispered nervously, "Sir, he's been here for over 10 years. "He's reliable," Richard scoffed. "Reliable?" "He's slow. Tell him if he can't keep up, he's done. I pay for results, not sympathy." The assistant hesitated. Elijah finally looked up, eyes calm, tired, yet unbroken. "I'm doing my best, sir," he said softly. Richard smirked. "Your best isn't enough in my world." He turned away, phone in hand, barking orders about profits, meetings, and deadlines. Elijah watched him go, the reflection of the billionaire's shiny shoes gleaming on the floor he had just polished. For a moment he whispered to himself, "One day, I'll build something so clean even you'll have to stop and look." But no one heard him. No one ever did. The other employees walked past, avoiding eye contact. The laughter of executives filled the hall as the janitor bent down again, quietly mopping away the footprints of men who never noticed him. He was invisible, or so they thought, because hidden behind those calloused hands and silent eyes was a mind that had been studying every move, every decision, every mistake this company made. And soon, the man they treated like a shadow would stand in a place so bright that even Richard King would have to look up. Low, suspenseful music fades in. The camera zooms out from the mop, reflecting the billionaires when the building emptied and the city lights flickered outside. Elijah stayed behind, pushing his cleaning cart through the silent hallways. The laughter and noise of the day faded, leaving only the soft squeak of his shoes on the polished floor. He stopped for a moment near the glass wall that overlooked the skyline, the same skyline he used to dream about when he was young. He used to imagine his name glowing on one of those towers. Now he just cleaned them. He opened his locker and pulled out a small, worn notebook. Inside were sketches, notes, and business ideas, things he had been writing for years. Concepts for affordable cleaning tech, eco-friendly equipment, and smarter workflow systems. His handwriting was rough, but his ideas were sharp. Every night after finishing his shift, he would sit in the corner of the janitor's room, reading business books he borrowed from the office library. The art of strategy, thinking like a leader, the power of simplicity. He devoured every page like it was air. At the same time, on the top floor, Richard King was celebrating another deal. Champagne glasses clinking, expensive music playing. He laughed loudly, surrounded by people who agreed with everything he said. "Success," he boasted, "belongs to those who never stop moving forward." But deep down, his empire was built on arrogance, not wisdom. Employees feared him. Partners tolerated him. His company looked perfect on paper but hollow inside. Meanwhile, Elijah quietly noticed everything. The broken system, the waste of money, the arrogance that blinded innovation. He cleaned offices, but his mind was busy polishing ideas that could make the entire system more efficient. One afternoon, as he was emptying trash bins in the boardroom, he overheard a meeting. The executives were arguing about falling performance and outdated operations. Elijah, standing silently in the corner, wanted to say something, but he knew his place until one of the managers dropped a file and muttered, "If only someone had a better idea." Elijah bent down to pick up the papers and softly said, "Maybe if you used a rotating task schedule, efficiency would go up by 30%. Less repetition, fewer errors." The room went quiet. Heads turned. Richard's assistant frowned. "Excuse me, what did you say?" Elijah froze. "Just something I noticed, sir." Before anyone could respond, Richard himself walked in. "What's going on?" The assistant chuckled. "Your janitor was giving us business advice." The room erupted in laughter. Richard smirked. "Business advice? From a man who cleans toilets. Elijah lowered his eyes, his voice calm. Just an observation, sir. Richard waved him off. Next time, observe how to mop faster. The laughter grew louder. Elijah said nothing. He just picked up his cart and walked out, but his eyes had changed. No anger, just quiet fire. That night, as the lights of the skyscraper faded, he wrote a single line in his notebook: if they can't see value in people, I'll build something they can't ignore. And from that moment, his journey truly began. Hose and the janitor's reflection beneath them. Elijah began his nights differently after that humiliating day. The laughter of the executive still echoed in his mind, but instead of breaking him, it fueled him. He started spending less time sleeping and more time creating. He borrowed an old laptop from a friend and began developing a simple business model, one that could revolutionize the cleaning industry. His concept was clear: Smart Clean Systems, a company that used sensors and scheduling software to reduce waste, cut costs, and make cleaning more efficient. Every free minute he had, lunch breaks, late nights, weekends, he used to research, code, and plan. The janitor's closet became his office, his bucket turned into a table, and his old notebook into a roadmap for a future no one could yet see. But success didn't come easy. When Elijah tried to present his ideas to investors, they laughed at his clothes, his job, his skin. Some didn't even let him finish his pitch. "Stick to cleaning, son," one of them said with a smirk. "You don't belong in this room." He walked out with his head high but his heart heavy. Still, he refused to quit. Months passed, and Elijah began testing his system in small community centers for free. Within weeks, their costs dropped, and their operations ran smoother than ever. People started noticing. Word spread slowly, then faster. One day, a local business magazine published a small article: "Former Janitor Creates System Revolutionizing Maintenance Industry." That headline was just a spark, but it reached the right eyes. A venture investor named Clara saw it and called him. "I read about what you're building," she said. "You're onto something big. Come meet me." Elijah hesitated. "You don't care that I'm just a janitor?" She laughed softly. "I care that you're a genius." That meeting changed everything. Clara invested in his startup, helped him build a small team, and within a year, Smart Clean Systems became one of the fastest-growing maintenance tech companies in the region. As Elijah's company grew, his past never left him. He still kept his old uniform, the one he wore the day Richard humiliated him, hanging in his new glass office. It reminded him of where he came from and what he had endured. Meanwhile, Richard King's empire began to crumble. Mismanagement, overconfidence, and employee resignations dragged his company toward bankruptcy. He refused to listen to anyone. He still believed he was untouchable, until the day he saw the new Forbes Magazine cover on his desk. The man on the cover wasn't him, it was Elijah, the janitor he had once ordered to clean. Faster. And below his smiling face, the headline read, "From mop to millionaire, the man who redefined efficiency." Richard sat in his massive corner office, the same one where he had once mocked Elijah, staring at the Forbes cover in disbelief. His fingers trembled as he turned the glossy page, reading every word like it was a personal attack. The man he had called a nobody was now celebrated as a visionary. His assistant knocked softly. "Sir, there's someone here to meet you." Richard frowned. "Who?" She hesitated. "Elijah Brooks, from Smart Clean Systems." For a moment, silence filled the room. Richard's breath caught in his throat. The name alone was enough to stir something. Shame, anger, maybe even regret. He straightened his tie, forcing a calm he didn't feel. "Send him in!" The door opened and Elijah walked in. No mop, no uniform, just a crisp navy suit and quiet confidence. His presence carried power but not arrogance. He smiled politely. "Good afternoon, Mr. King," Richard's voice cracked. "Elijah, it's been a while." "It has," Elijah said calmly. "I heard your company's facing some trouble. Thought maybe I could help." Richard blinked, confused. "Help? After what I—" He stopped mid-sentence, unable to finish the thought. Elijah sat down opposite him. "You once told me to clean faster. I did. Not just flaws, systems, waste, the way businesses treat people like me. And now, I think I can clean up your company too. For the first time in years, Richard felt small. His pride wanted to fight back, but his reality wouldn't let him. His empire was collapsing, and the man in front of him held the solution. He lowered his head. "Elijah, I was wrong about you. About a lot of things." Elijah nodded gently. "We all make mistakes. What matters is what we do after them." The meeting went on for hours. Elijah laid out a plan to restructure the company using his smart clean system. Richard listened, truly listened, for the first time. Every word from Elijah carried wisdom that came not from books or privilege, but from experience, struggle, and resilience. By the end, Richard extended his hand. "I don't deserve this chance, but thank you." Elijah shook his hand, firm but humble. "You don't have to deserve it. You just have to respect it." As Elijah left the office, Richard watched him go, realizing that the man he had once looked down on now stood far above him, not because of money or fame, but because of character. That night, Richard opened his Forbes magazine one more time. He traced Elijah's face on the cover and whispered almost to himself, "The janitor cleaned more than floors. He cleaned my arrogance." And for the first time in his life, Richard King smiled, not as a billionaire, but as a man who finally understood humility. That night, Elijah sat alone in his penthouse apartment, the view of the city lights stretching endlessly beyond the glass. The same city where he once pushed a cleaning cart through cold marble halls now glowed beneath his success. He turned off the music, letting the silence fill the room. On his table sat two things: the Forbes magazine and his old janitor's badge. The contrast between them felt surreal. He picked up the badge, ran his thumb across the faded letters, and whispered, "You got me here." His phone buzzed, a video call from Ms. Turner, the retired supervisor who had always treated him with kindness back in his janitorial days. She had been like a quiet mentor, the one who told him, "People will see your hands are dirty and think you're less. Don't let that make your heart dirty too." "Ms. Turner," Elijah greeted warmly. She smiled through the screen, her wrinkles deepening with pride. "Look at you now. Forbes cover and everything. I always knew you'd rise higher than those suits." Elijah chuckled softly. "I'm just doing what you taught me. Clean with purpose, even if it's not flaws anymore." She laughed, then her tone turned tender. "You remember the night you cried in that supply closet?" He nodded slowly. "I do. I told you then," she continued, "that when the world throws dirt at you, it's not to bury you. It's to plant you. You just had to grow through it." Elijah's eyes shimmered. "You were right, ma'am. Every insult, every laugh, every closed door, they were lessons. I didn't just clean floors. I cleaned my soul." There was a pause, one heavy with gratitude and peace. Before hanging up, Ms. Turner said, "Keep shining, Elijah. But never forget the people still sweeping the hallways. They're dreamers too." After the call, Elijah opened his laptop and typed an email to his team. The subject line read, "New Initiative, Cleaners to Leaders Program." In the message, he announced scholarships and training for janitors across the city to teach them business skills, digital literacy, and entrepreneurship. He ended it with one simple line, "Let's give others the chance no one gave me." As he hit send, Elijah looked out the window again. The world had changed, not just for him, but for everyone who had ever been unseen, unheard, underestimated. In that quiet moment, he whispered, "This isn't my success. It's our redemption." The city lights reflected in his eyes like 1,000 tiny stars, symbols of every soul still fighting to rise. A few months later, the city buzzed with excitement. The Grand Business Innovation Gala, an event where the nation's top entrepreneurs were honored, was about to begin. This year, everyone was talking about one man, Elijah Brooks, founder of Smart Clean Systems. The hall shimmered with golden lights, chandeliers hanging like frozen stars. Billionaires, politicians, and CEOs filled the seats, including Richard King, sitting quietly in the back row, avoiding cameras. He wasn't the main guest anymore. The spotlight had shifted. When Elijah stepped onto the stage, the audience rose in applause. He looked confident but calm, wearing the same humble smile he'd always had. Yet under that calmness was emotion, memories of laughter, rejection, and long nights that had brought him here. The host began, "Tonight we celebrate a man who changed not just how we clean our spaces, but how we value people. From janitor to innovator, please welcome Mr. Elijah Brooks." Thunderous applause filled the room. Elijah walked up to the podium, paused for a breath, and began, "When I first started, I wasn't invited to rooms like this. In fact, I was told to clean them." Soft laughter rippled through the crowd. "I remember being told to work faster, to stay invisible, because people like me were never meant to sit at these tables." He looked around slowly, eyes searching through the audience, and found Richard, sitting quietly with lowered eyes. "But life," Elijah continued, "has a strange way of teaching us that greatness doesn't wear a suit. Sometimes it wears a uniform and carries a mop." The audience fell silent. His words hit deeper than any speech that night. He went on, his voice steady. "I didn't build Smart Clean to prove anyone wrong. I built it to prove that everyone matters. The janitor, the guard, the maid, the driver, the people who make the world work, while the rest of us take credit." Cameras flashed, recording every word. Some executives nodded with guilt, others with admiration. "I once believed success was about climbing higher," Elijah said. "But I learned true success is about lifting others with you." The crowd erupted in applause, not polite clapping, but standing, roaring appreciation. Even the waiters stopped to listen. And then quietly, one man also stood, Richard King. He clapped slowly, eyes glistening, not out of pity or showmanship, but out of respect. For the first time in his life, he was clapping for someone who had once worked for him. Elijah smiled gently from the stage. Their eyes met for a second. No bitterness, just silent forgiveness. He ended his speech with a simple line that left the room breathless. "Never underestimate the one who sweeps your floor. He might just build your future." The entire hall rose again, applause echoing like thunder. Elijah bowed his head, humbled, as camera flashes captured the moment that would soon inspire millions. After the ceremony, the crowd swarmed around Elijah, journalists, photographers, and business leaders, all eager to shake his hand. But through the noise and flashing lights, his eyes caught a familiar face, slowly walking toward him. Richard King. He looked older now, the sharpness of arrogance replaced by quiet humility. The man who once commanded entire boardrooms now hesitated with each step, unsure if he even deserved to speak. The chatter around them faded as Richard finally stopped in front of Elijah. For a moment, neither said a word. The air was thick with history. Richard spoke first, voice low and uncertain. "Elijah, I don't even know where to begin." Elijah looked at him calmly. "Then start with honesty." Richard nodded, his throat tightening. "That day, when I told you to clean faster, I thought I was teaching you discipline, but I was only showing my own ignorance." He paused, taking a deep breath. "I saw a janitor. I never saw the man you truly were. And tonight, standing in the back, watching you up there, I realized I wasn't just wrong about you. I was wrong about everything success means." Elijah listened quietly. There was no anger in his eyes, just understanding. Richard continued, "If there's any way I can make it right, I'll do it. Not for the cameras, for my own peace." Elijah smiled faintly. "You already did. You showed up. That's the first step." They stood in silence for a moment, two men from different worlds now standing as equals. Elijah then said softly, "You know, I never hated you, Richard. I pitied you, because while I was cleaning floors, I was learning patience. While you were chasing power, you were losing people. We both worked hard, just in different directions." Richard's eyes welled up. "You built an empire from nothing. I destroyed one with everything. That's the difference between pride and purpose." Elijah placed a hand on his shoulder. "It's never too late to rebuild, not the company, but yourself." Richard looked down, swallowing emotion. "Thank you. for the forgiveness I don't deserve." Elijah's tone softened. "Forgiveness isn't about who deserves it. It's about who needs peace." At that, Richard smiled, weak but sincere. "You've taught me more in 5 minutes than I learned in 50 years. As Richard walked away, Elijah watched him disappear into the crowd, the same man who once looked down on him now, walking with humility. And in that moment, Elijah realized something powerful. Sometimes redemption isn't in revenge. It's in showing the one who broke you that you still chose kindness. The applause from the hall continued behind him, but Elijah didn't turn. He just closed his eyes and whispered, "This is what winning feels like." Weeks later, Elijah walked through the same corporate building where his journey had begun years ago, the place where he'd once been ordered to clean faster. But this time, things were different. His company, Smart Clean Systems, had officially partnered with the building to implement their new eco-efficient management technology. The employees greeted him with respect, the same way they used to greet the billionaires who once ignored him. As he walked past the lobby, a young janitor, nervous, holding his mop, stopped him. "Sir, are you really Elijah Brooks? The one from the magazine?" Elijah smiled warmly. "That's what they say." The boy hesitated, eyes wide with admiration. I clean here at night too. I've got dreams, but people just laugh. They say guys like us don't make it out." Elijah looked him straight in the eyes and said gently, "They laughed at me too. But remember, you're not defined by where you start. You're defined by how far you're willing to go." He handed the boy his business card. "Call me when you're ready to take that dream seriously." The janitor's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, sir. I won't forget this." Elijah nodded and kept walking. When he reached the top floor, he entered what used to be Richard King's office. It had been redesigned, bright, open, with a wall dedicated to framed photographs titled "The People Who Keep Us Moving." Each frame showed janitors, cleaners, guards, and drivers, the real backbone of every business. He stood there silently, staring at those faces, a small smile crossing his lips. He touched one frame, an old photo of himself in his blue uniform, holding a mop and grinning shyly at the camera. His assistant entered quietly. "Sir, the press is waiting for your closing statement." Elijah turned, still smiling. "Let's give them something real." Moments later, he stood on the same stage where he had once been humiliated, now transformed into a guest of honor. Cameras flashed. The crowd hushed. He took a breath, then began, "I used to believe success was about money and fame. But it's not. Success is about dignity, in work, in struggle, in how we treat each other. The janitor, the maid, the cleaner, they are not invisible. They are the foundation we all stand on." His voice softened, filled with emotion. "If my story means anything, let it remind you that greatness doesn't come from your title. It comes from your truth." He paused, then delivered his final line, the one that would echo across screens worldwide. "So the next time you pass someone sweeping your floor, look them in the eye and say thank you. Because they might be sweeping away more than dust. They might be clearing a path to destiny." The audience rose in thunderous applause. Some wiped tears, others stood in silent respect. As Elijah stepped down from the stage, the lights dimmed and a soft piano tune played, the same kind of quiet music that had once accompanied his loneliness. But now it carried something else: peace, purpose, power, because the janitor the world had once ignored had become the man the world would never forget.